Please support this podcast by purchasing Tio MacDonald books, found on both Audible and Amazon. Thank you. 1 second. So, hello, this is Tio MacDonald, East Oakland Times, talking with Seraphim Jade, who is a podcaster with the East Oakland Times, coming out of a Chowchilla women's prison. And how's it going today, Seraphim Jade?
I'm blessed and highly favored, real good spirits, high spirits, and pushing on.
Excellent. Thank you for your time. This has been a podcast that you and I have worked on for some time in creating, and both of us have seen. Yeah, for real. I've been excited, but logistics, right? They've sort of prevented it, but. Is it true that there was a lockdown? Is the lockdown over with at Chowchilla?
No, the lockdown is still on for another week. I was able to battle to get on the phone and to be able to do this podcasting.
Yes.
So yes. A lot has gone into being able to make this happen today.
Yes, and that is some of a bit what you're going to talk about. Your podcast is called The Chronicles of the Female Prisoner, and some of the statements that are just made kind of allude to the types of content or types of subjects that may be addressed, such as, just the I wouldn't call it inconveniences, but the realities of prison life. And we're going to talk about a number of things, but ultimately at the end of the day, in my mind, the main question is, are the objectives being fulfilled that are desired by society as a whole, meaning California, by imprisoning people? And so you're going to give us a true-to-life tale. And this true-to-life tale begins at age 15.
Yes. I have been incarcerated since I was 15 years old. July of 2000 is when I got arrested, 3 months after my 15th birthday. And that was for a homicide in San Bernardino County in Rialto, California. And there was a 13-year-old friend of mine that was also with me when this crime was committed, and I was intoxicated. I had marijuana and sherm, also known as PCP, in my system that was given to me by 3 older males the day before. I didn't even know I was under the influence. My first time doing a heavy drug. So, needless to say, I was clearly, I was like delusional and made a lot of bad choices. I was abused growing up.
Let me ask one question though. What were the circumstances of these men giving you sherm? And sherm is PCP, and it was very strong drug.
Yeah, the circumstances of that was about the night before. I was out. It was about 9:30, 10ish at night. My mother, there was no supervision. She didn't supervise.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And we didn't live with my dad. He wasn't in the picture. We left him when I was 8. So my mom kind of just let me have a free reign, and I'm out here and I smoke cigarettes. Okay. So I'm walking by, and these are apartment complexes. And I'm walking by, and these 3 guys, they call me over to where they are, and they're smoking. And obviously it was weed, because, a.k.a. marijuana. You could smell it. And they offered me some, and I told them no. But I asked them if they have cigarettes, because I smoked cigarettes, and they said, well, if you smoke some of this, they called it a lovely. That's, for the record, that's PCP-laced weed. That's what that is.
What was the name?
And they call it a lovely.
Lovely.
And A lovely. That's marijuana laced with PCP. It's called a lovely in Southern California. And I told them no at first, but the deal was they'd give me cigarettes if I smoked some with them. So I ended up smoking some with them. And they freaked out. They got nervous. They took it from me. And I walked away from them. And I didn't even realize that I was under the influence that heavily.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a lovely was until after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, needless to say, there was that factor, and then there was the factor that I have post-traumatic stress disorder from childhood abuse. So, heavy drugs and PTSD, they don't mix.
Yes.
You know, and so, like a night or two, it was about a day or two later, I ended up committing this crime.
Yes.
On an innocent person.
Yes.
And it was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's parts of it that I didn't remember clearly, but there's parts that I remember very clearly.
Mm.
I ended up calling 911 myself, and I ended up confessing to the crime, to what I had done, and then I did my best to explain to the detectives why I had done what I did.
Mm-hmm. And
they felt that I should be tried as an adult, and I got sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms plus a 6-year enhancement for murder.
For murder. And this was when you were 15. Okay.
Yeah, I had just turned 15 years old. I had never been convicted of a crime before. I wasn't a delinquent. I was never in and out of Juvenile Hall. So this is my first time ever being in any kind of trouble. And except for maybe petty theft once, stealing a candy bar when I was really small. And this is what happened. I got life in prison, and I haven't been out of prison since. It's been 18 years that I've been incarcerated now. And a lot has happened in that time. And I've seen the underbelly of the prison system, and it's not pretty.
Yes. The whole time have you been
Horrible.
at Chowchilla?
No. I was in Juvenile Hall for the first 2 years fighting my case. Once convicted and sentenced, I was sent here at 16. The prison gave me my prison number and then sent me back to Juvenile Hall because they didn't want me in their general population at 16 years old. So I ended up in a youth authority until I turned 18. And on my 18th birthday, CIW, it stands for California Institution for Women. That's in Southern California. They picked me up from the youth authority to start my life sentence in prison, in adult prison. And so they endorsed me, meaning that prison transferred me straight to this prison. And this is a maximum security prison. So I never got a chance to be in a minimum security prison. I spent all of my time doing my life sentence in the adult system in a maximum security prison. Just a level 4 or 5 prison. And that was the problem. It's very harsh.
Yes.
In many ways.
What, the Chronicles of the Female Prisoner, you've introduced yourself, Seraphim, as in a direct way, which is fantastic. Much appreciated. And the honesty is I'm grateful for that. And we will probably may discuss more, we may not. But what is it that you're looking to accomplish in the podcast, The Chronicles of the Female Prisoner?
I'm hoping to accomplish the understanding of the dehumanization that happens once people are put in the system. And hopefully by educating the listeners about what really happens and how we are dehumanized, that maybe they would be propelled to take some sort of action, let their voices be heard, maybe play a role in helping bring about change so that this doesn't continue, because they do have, you listeners out there, you do have a degree of power to do something about this. You can help bring about change.
Yes, and so, I mean, the unique thing about your incarceration, and it's something that I think you probably own, because it is been the majority of your life experience has been in prison. and I don't. I kind of feel like that is something that, for instance, John McCain recently passed, and one thing that he said was that he has no regrets about his whole life history, and part of his life history includes being in a Vietnamese prison camp where he suffered, all kinds of abuses. But he was, moved on from that. And I'm kind of like summarizing, but he kept his life geared towards public service. And this is, in a way, a public service that we're doing, in part because the way that the CDCR works, Department of Corrections, is important for all persons of California. Important for
Right.
Our attitudes about imprisonment, our attitudes about crime, our attitudes about children being locked up, and also
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
where money is being spent. And so it is I would say a blessing, and I'm very grateful to be working with you on this, because you experience adolescence in prison, and the beginnings of womanhood, and now as an adult, you have a definite story to tell.
Yes, and it starts within the system. It starts in the juvenile system, since that's where I was initially. And I experienced a lot of abuse while in juvenile hall for the 2 years that I was there.
Okay. Now, right now, I'm reading. We're at 14 minutes, and I think that's a great place to start. Now, we can start at juvenile hall, and I think that'd be good since we introduced the topic. And we're talking.
60 seconds remaining.
You are 15 years old, and that's from 15 to 18. And right now, your statement is that abuse was suffered in juvenile hall, and I'm going to assume that was at the hands of the correctional staff. But this is not a sensational program. Like, we're not trying to make sensation. All we're trying to do is talk about how people really experience and see things. And so I look forward to talking when you call back.
Right. So I'll be touching on that next, is the abuses that went on in the juvenile system first.
Yes. Sounds good.
So, all right.
Talk to you in a minute.
So.
Okay.
In a minute.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
This is Global Tellink. You have a prepaid call from an inmate at the Central California Women's Facility, Chowchilla, California. Your advance pay account has a low balance. To place more funds, please call 1-800-483-8314. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tellink.
Hello, this is Tio MacDonald, East Oakland Times, speaking here with Seraphim Jade, and we're going to discuss, this is a continuation of introduction to Seraphim as a podcaster, and the plan, as I understand it, is to get into the experience of being put in juvenile hall.
While in juvenile hall, when I first arrived there, apparently I was all over TV, all in the newspapers, and I wasn't aware of this at that time. And so they would not allow me to come out of my cell. They would feed me food trays that had huge, and this is not for the squeamish, but they would have huge movies that they would spit on my food trays. And I noticed it, so I went for at least 4 to 5 days without eating when I first got there. And I didn't understand what could inspire these people who I didn't know me for all I knew. They didn't know me from a can of paint to be so hateful or be so angry with me. Little did I know because of what they were seeing on TV, because my case was being made high profile. It was at a time when Proposition 21 was coming into vogue, and back in the year 2000, when they believed that there were child super predators, and they believed me to be one of these child super predators. So I was treated very abusively because of that way of thinking and that mentality. And so there I would be pepper sprayed. They pepper sprayed me every day. There's times where they had stripped me naked and pepper sprayed me. And they jumped me once and they kicked me in the head. And because of head injuries, I was put in the emergency room. They would have constantly taught me about me facing life in prison. At some point, I faced the death penalty. And the staff in my housing unit, my housing staff, they would come to my window and draw frowny faces when I would cry. And they would say things like, well, I hope you fry and you're going to get what you deserve and things like that. And I just felt that, and it didn't even make me angry. It just broke my heart because it reminded me of my dad all over again, who was very abusive. And I just didn't understand why those people hated me so much.
That makes
sense. As far as I knew, I had done nothing to those people. So it was crazy. So that experience was horrible for me. And it was very emotionally and psychologically damaging to me because I was a child who was developing. I also have PTSD already from being abused by my dad growing up. And then I get put in the system, and instead of getting help, because I needed help desperately, I got further abuse at the hands of the corrections officers that worked there. And I was barely 15 years old, and I only weighed about 93 pounds, and I was 5'2". So when they jumped me and they kicked me with combat boots on in my head, it was easy for them to injure me because I was small. I was really small.
Were these female correctional officers?
Female correctional officers and one male. And these type of experiences went on for at least close to the whole 2 years that I was in that juvenile hall in San Bernardino. And it got to a point where I started to fight back because I told myself I've been abused all my life up until that point. And it's time that I start fighting back or these people are going to kill me. I didn't think I was going to live to see the end of a trial in court because of the types of abuse that I was being subjected to. They make you, in juvenile hall, they would strip search us. They did that a lot. And they would, I had long extensions, braids, and they made me take them all out. But my housing staff, she came in the shower on me, and she was, snatching them out. It was a horrible experience for me. And this is all because I can only presume it was because of my case being given so much media attention, negative media attention, that it stirred people's anger against me. And they acted on it. And these are people that were in positions of authority. That's what was scary to me.
Yes.
There was points where they'd have it in the newspaper that my correction officers and my unit killed me. One time they had that in the San Bernardino Sun newspaper that I was murdered by my housing staff. My mother was devastated. My brothers went crazy. And they had to get that statement corrected. It was a misstatement by the press. But they corrected it, and they just said that there was reports that I was being abused, which I was, while being detained at the San Bernardino Juvenile Detention Center.
Wow.
And those are the types of things that go on, and they even do that to kids.
Yes.
Sexual assaults happen on a regular basis. I watched them kick a 14-year-old girl who was 8 months pregnant in her stomach and pepper sprayed her. And her baby almost died as a result. And
this call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
These are just their human rights abuses. It goes beyond just abuse. In my book, that's child torture.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, it was just tremendously inhumane, and similar things happen here. You know, it's a lot more vicious here too. If you can imagine things getting more vicious than that, they can in an adult prison system.
Mm-hmm.
You have the element of rape done to women here. I've been sexually assaulted here once already, and I was told by the investigative services unit, who worked for CDCR. So of course there wasn't going to be any justice for me in that. And now I'm speaking on the experience that happened here at this prison that I'm in now, the adult prison system, in 2015 in May. You know, and I am a woman of color, and this was a white male who was apparently one of the police officers that was involved in the Rodney King beating. And he was, some of those officers wound up becoming corrections officers because of that incident. So by this point, he's older.
Yes.
By 2015, when this incident happened, and he was known for calling female inmates the B word and the N word if you were black. Yet he liked to go around and sniff our underwear. He would pretend like he was doing a room search, and when we all step out the room, he would go in drawers and sniff your underwear and things like that. So one day, I'm working in the kitchen, the prison kitchen here, and he comes in and he puts his arm around me. There's a policy in CDCR, by the way. Staff and inmates are not to have any physical contact whatsoever, especially intimate or sexual. And the type of contact he made with me on May 5th of 2015 was sexual, where he groped me and everything, you know, my butt area, and he's done it in front of other inmates, and it was very degrading to me. I've been called the N-word by this officer in the past, in 2003. And so I've already had a negative history with this particular corrections officer. So now you feel like you have the right to come and take a sexual advantage of me, too. So then it put me in the mind of slavery. And I can definitely see where a lot of women were being raped during slavery by white slave owners. Because, like they say, the policy in prison is we are state property in prison. That is the rule.
Mm-hmm.
So we belong to the state. So we are property. Just like in times of slavery, we were property then. So all this, the prison it's a prison industrial complex where it's just like a modern slave trade almost. We work in here for 8 cents or for free. And we owe restitution on top of it. But also we get taken advantage of by the male officers when they have a sexual whim to fulfill. And sometimes if you don't do it, they threaten to give you a disciplinary infraction. It's called a 115.
Was there any change? You know, there's a Me Too movement, and I would think that influence reached into CDCR as it reached into the California state legislator. There was legislator. There was a number of representatives who were asked to leave or resigned. Was there any sense of a tightening up on you know, the tolerance of these types of actions in your mind?
Well, they passed the PREA Act to address sexual assault and rape in the prison system, but it hasn't completely stopped because our voices are stifled in here, and nobody cares what happens to us for the most part because we're convicted felons.
Yes.
But it's time for me to go.
Oh, okay.
I will be calling back tomorrow, and we will continue.
Okay, very good. Look forward to tomorrow. Thank you for the call, Seraphim Jade, and we have much more to talk about, so this will be a positive and productive podcast. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, talk soon.